Hello everybody. What we're going to have a look at in today's video is a quick guide to punctuation. Everything that is required for you to know at both level 1 and level 2 functional skills English. So, why do we need punctuation? Punctuation can change the meaning of what we are saying. Just a simple comma can completely change who is doing what to whom in a sentence. It's important because it enables us to communicate our message clearly and effectively. And without it, we don't understand how those units or parts of a sentence work together, how they relate to one another. And as such, it can help us to clearly understand what the writer is intending. So, as you can see on the screen here, we have some of the most common types of English punctuation. You're expected, especially at level 2, to demonstrate an understanding and a use of a range of punctuation. So it's ensuring that we're doing everything from using a capital letter at the beginning of sentences and some form of punctuation at the end. If we can do that and we can do that confidently, then we're on to a great start. After that, we need to start building on it and trying to include a few of these other symbols as well. So we need to ensure that we know when to use them in order to make sure that we are getting the highest marks possible. So we're going to start off with a full stop, or in American English, it's known as a period. A full stop is when you come to the end of a sentence and you have nothing further to say in that particular part. You can start a new sentence and keep talking, but if your sentence is complete, you end it with a full stop. A full stop indicates an end. So we've got an example here. It says, Lizzie really didn't want to spend the holidays working, but she felt she had no choice in the matter. Full stop at the end. That thought, that piece of information is finished. We use a full stop. An exclamation mark. Whenever we are exclaiming something, which could be screaming, shouting, anything that we are giving extra emphasis to, we use an exclamation mark. And as you can see here, we've got the example. It changes it from help me to help me. We are exclaiming, we are giving that emphasis, that extra level of sort of thought, of feeling on there. So an exclamation mark is used when we want to give it power, but usually because it's something shocking, exciting, or maybe because somebody is raising their voice. So that's exclamation marks. After that, we have one of the most common ones possible. We've got question marks. So they're used commonly at the end of all questions, and that can include rhetorical questions. So even where we're not expecting to get an answer from the person that we're writing this to, we are still asking them a question. The most common questions start with the list you can see behind me: who, what, where, when, why, and how, although it isn't limited to those. Brackets or parentheses. So brackets are used to add, it says here, incidental or non-essential information to a sentence. If we want to add anything extra into our sentence, we can put it between brackets. So your sentence should still make sense, even if the bit in brackets is taken out. As you can see from the example, if we said, John really didn't want to go to training today, that's fine. If we want to add a little more to it, a bit more detail, we could say, John, in his incredibly tired state, really didn't want to go to training today. So it still makes sense with or without that lump in the middle, with or without that information that we have put in our brackets. So brackets to add extra information into a sentence without changing the overall meaning. Commas. We use these most commonly to separate items in a list. There are other ways as well, but the most common one, and the one that we need to make sure that we are getting right, is when we're writing anything in a list. So rather than saying this morning I had egg and bacon and hash browns and mushrooms and sausage and chip, you would write this morning I had egg, bacon, hash browns, mushrooms, sausage and chips. And you can hear there's almost a pause when we use it. I had egg, bacon, hash browns, mushrooms, sausage and chips. So there's always, if you ever need a pause in a sentence, that's when we'll use a comma as well. Please note as well, when we're writing anything in a list like that, then the last one we always put the word and before that. So we don't say eggs, bacon, hash browns, mushroom, sausage, chips. It's eggs, bacon, hash browns, mushroom, sausage, and chips in order to finish that sentence perfectly. Apostrophes. Okay, so we have quite a heavy subject here. So apostrophes are one of those things that even native English speakers get wrong on a very regular basis. It's because some of the rules that we were taught in school are easy to get confused and easy to forget if we don't use them regularly. So there are two types of apostrophe. They both look the same, but they're used for different purposes. The first one is for contractions. It's where we get two words and we smush them together, and usually we remove a letter, and to show that that letter is missing, we put in an apostrophe. So the example we have here is do not becomes don't. So that second O, the one in not, disappears, and in order to show that that letter's missing, we put the little apostrophe in instead. There are many, many, many examples of these. So anything that ends in do not, should not, would not, could not, all of these that turn to shouldn't, wouldn't, couldn't, as well as anything that ends in have, could have, would have, all turn to could have, would have, should have. The second reason we use apostrophes is when something belongs to something. And then we put the apostrophe after somebody's name to show that it belongs to them. For example, this is a cup. This is Alex. This is Alex's with an apostrophe, A-L-E-X apostrophe S, Alex's cup. That means the cup belongs to Alex. If we just said Alex has lots of cups, that's fine, no apostrophes. If we're just talking about a plural, which is a lot of something, then we just add S or ES on the end. It's only when it belongs to somebody, or if it's two words that have been shortened together, that we use an apostrophe. Again, I will try to ensure that a full lesson on apostrophe use is uploaded in the near future. Quotation marks. So, in our reading exams, we are often asked to use quotes or evidence directly from the text. And the easiest way to show that we have used somebody else's words in our writing is to put two little marks beforehand and two little marks afterwards. We call them bunny ears, like rabbit ears. Two at the beginning and two at the end. And it shows that the writing between them has been taken from somewhere else. Alternatively, it can mean that they are someone else's words, either written or spoken. So, for example, we could say here something like, give some evidence from the text that shows that Alex has pink hair. And it would say something like, you look at the text and it says, Alex had always really enjoyed having bright pink hair. So you take those words, but to show that they're not words that you have written, they are words you have taken from somewhere else, you start by putting quotation marks at the beginning and at the end. It just separates it. After that, we have a hyphen. So you can see just from the fact we have a list here, there's a couple of different reasons why we would use a hyphen in a text. So sometimes if we've got two words that are usually joined together, they are joined together with a hyphen. So for example, the one we have here, it says well known, but it's also things like well-being as well. So often when we have two words that we put together to make a whole word, we will separate them with a hyphen. We use it in compound modifiers before nouns. So for example, as you can see on this one on the board, a 4-page document. So whenever we're using some form of numbers at the beginning, before a noun, before the name of a thing. So in this case, 4 is the modifier before the noun, which is page. We use it with certain prefixes. So self-esteem is one. Self-study. Anything that starts with self, you're maybe looking at a whole word like selfish, but anything that is a self-something, self-study, self-catering, things like that, often have a hyphen to separate them. We should use a hyphen in numbers. So the example we have here is 21. I consider that a slightly old-fashioned practice these days. I would always write the wording out for a number in an exam rather than just using the digits. However, 21 hyphenated is the proper way to do things, although it has fallen out of fashion over the recent years. And then the last reason we use a hyphen is to avoid confusion or awkward combinations of letters. Like re-sign is very different from the word resign. So we're showing that we're redoing something. But to re-sign something means to sign it again. To resign, see, even the pronunciation is different, even though the letters are the same. To resign means to give something up or to leave a job, something like that. So, on to the very last one, we have ellipses. So we can use this for two different purposes again. The main one being that if we are going to use a quote from a text and it's too long, and so we want to use the beginning and the end of it, because they're the important parts, then we can use ellipses to indicate that we've not used the whole of the piece of the text. It shows that something is missing. So we have an example here on the board that says, the local council said that there isn't enough money to build a new sports centre, but perhaps a change to the car park is possible. So where after it says centre, it may say the local council said there isn't enough money to build a new sports centre due to budget cuts over recent years, but perhaps a change to the car park is possible. So you can see it just indicates that some information has been removed. Now, those of you watching the video, I will try and put a link to this Kahoot quiz into the comments so that you can have a go at this yourselves. Alternatively, if you just get in touch with me, I am more than happy to share this PowerPoint with all of my learners so that you can use it as revision material. And then the last thing I want you to think about, is moving on before our next video, is the concept of homophones. Homo means the same. Phones are sounds, so it's words that sound the same but have a different meaning. So as you can see from the example on the board, the top picture is a bear, B-E-A-R, bear. The second picture is a cupboard that is bare, which is empty, B-A-R-E. So they sound the same but have very different meanings. I'll be creating a video in the very near future that gives you lots of very common examples of these so that you can make yourself aware, because often we don't realise what mistakes we're making in our spelling and grammar until we see a list of these things. So we need to ensure that every word we're using is correct for what we want to say. Here we go, here's some common ones, and if you can see the scribbles in the middle, this is a very visual way that I use to help me remember the difference between three of those homophones. So if we're talking about the first spelling, T-H-E-R-E, it means there, over, there. And you can see it's got the arrow to remind me from the letter R, we have the arrow. If we're talking about there, T-H-E-I-R, it means it belongs to somebody. And as such, I always try to remember that the I in there looks like a little person. So we must be talking about a person if I'm using that example. And then the last one, they are, they, literally, if you just slow down, if you write it this way and you pronounce it as they are, and it still makes sense in your sentence, as in, they are going to the park this afternoon, they are going to the park, that makes sense. But if we said their clothing was dirty, then we need to think, because they are clothing doesn't sound right, we're using the wrong one. So things like that, there are visual guides, things that help you remember. And there are so many different techniques out there to help you remember the difference between the homophones, but also to help you remember with specific spellings as well. So please, after watching this, if you have any questions, if you need any hints or tips, please feel free to get in touch. I'm more than happy, as always, to send out any revision guides or point you in the direction of some really good websites that have worksheets and fact sheets for you to study in your own time. Thank you very much. See you later, everybody.